All right, I believe we are live at the moment here. In episode number 6 here of the Sword Talks that we've been doing, and they have been developing and changing a bit here and there. We've had some different guests from time to time. You'll probably recognize John Farthing with us. He's been with us on a few Sword Talks, and we're really happy that he's here again. And he brought along one of his great friends with him, Parker Brown, who is a wonderful arms and armor craftsman, specifically focusing on the armor, which is really cool because we've met quite a few swordsmiths and bladesmiths throughout our topics, and we're going to have some more bladesmiths coming up. But Parker is just a true artist. I really just kind of was introduced to him probably about 3 minutes before jumping in here, and you have to forgive me. I mean, we all live busy lives, but man, I don't know how I missed this guy. And that's what's so great about these shows is it's not only an education for myself, but education for everyone to see who is out there, what kind of work they're doing, whether it's the martial arts side, or whether it's the academic side, or the museum side, or in Parker's case here, the actual craftsmanship side, which is, again, as I say, we're gonna try something a little different today too. We're gonna try to bring up his website a few times and show you some of the actual pieces that he's been working on. But without any further ado, let's just jump right in here. For those of you who don't know our good friend John, maybe I could just pass the mic over to him for a minute. He can explain. He actually was involved in our Reclaiming the Blade Day that we had, and he also has been helping us quite a bit with our Sons of Fire film, which we are developing, and we are planning to produce another Reclaiming the Blade film. So if you go to reclaimingtheblade.com, you can see right there, you can sign up and grab any number of packages, and you get some awesome rewards for helping us. It's essentially a donation, but it comes with packages, and it helps us make that second film. So please consider going to reclaimingtheblade.com and helping us out there. And we will be doing, these are basically just labor of love here that we're doing this for the fans and the people. There's the first film. Thank you, John. It was a lot of fun to make that film. A lot of fun to make it. We, looked at as I say, the bladesmiths and martial artists, but we're going to try to do these shows for you every Saturday at 5 o'clock. So every Saturday we're going to be here. I may not always be the host. There may be another host. We'll have different guests, but I'm just really excited about going into this fall, knowing that each week we're going to be highlighting, more and more craftsmen and artists and martial artists. It's just really excited about it. So we're just bringing that to you as a labor of love. We love these arts as much as you do, and that's what kind of brings us all together. I mean, it's really a round table. So, and that's what this is, a round table discussion. So with that said, let me pass it over to John, and he can tell you who he is for those of you who are new to Sword Talks, and then we will get into some of Parker's amazing work.
All right, thank you, Daniel. As Daniel said, I'm returning for, I think, the third time on Sword Talks here. And I am, for those of you who haven't seen me before or are familiar, my name is John Farthing, and I am the Deputy Director of the ARMA, or Association for Renaissance Martial Arts.
That's awesome. And John, you'd probably be best at introducing our guest. I know that he is the lead craftsman, I guess, or he's the creator of Crescent Moon Armory. So maybe you can just introduce him and tell him, just give him a little introduction, and then we'll jump in with some questions.
All right, kind of put me on the spot here. Let's see, Bachelor number 3 hails from. No, yes, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to announce my very good friend and fellow ARMA member, Parker Brown. Parker, as you mentioned, is the sole proprietor of Crescent Moon Armories. And as an ARMA member, we work very closely with him and he with us in understanding historical armors and how they move with the body during combat. Not just the showy armor that you might just wear. Armor's beautiful, and it's a work of art, which is why museums like the Metropolitan Museum of Art feature arms and armor collections. But armor's more than that. It's functional and it's utilitarian. And Parker's work, along with our work, creates a symphonica that brings those elements together, which few armorers today are doing. And we thank Parker and value our relationship with him, not only as a member of our organization, but in the incredible and masterful work that he's doing. So without further ado, I give you Parker Brown.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a few questions. And by the way, people can drop questions in the chat on YouTube, or there are some other places that this is streaming live. So wherever you are, we'll try to monitor those and get something to you. So Parker, can you just tell us kind of how you got started into the work that you do?
Well, honestly, this started back when I was much younger. I think like a lot of people, I had a real interest in historical knights and shining armor. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that my parents let me see Excalibur when I was probably a little bit too young to be watching the movie Excalibur. And then immediately I tried to, get on my bicycle and, I don't know, attack all the neighbor kids. My first armor project was actually when I was a teenager, when I was still in high school. I was bored in art class, and I was very fortunate that the guy who was teaching at the time was a metalsmith. And he saw that I was very bored with the standard projects, and he said, "Hey, you want to see something cool?" And he started showing me how to bronze casting, and simultaneously, this weird thing called the internet was coming into common usage. It was about 1995, and I found a very early website on making chainmail, or just mail, and started on my long path of learning how to make armor. Now, right now, I have a degree. I have a master's degree in metalsmithing. I started Crescent Moon Armory the day after I graduated with my bachelor's degree in metalsmithing, and it started out as something that I was just doing on the side. But now this is what I do. I'm a professional armorer. This is my living, and it is coming together with my passion with my membership in the Association for Renaissance Martial Arts, and the two inform each other. I don't view armor as a costume. I view it as a martial tool. Just like you have a sword, you have to have armor, and both have to function and perform a task. And if they're not doing that, then you need to step back and examine how you view arms and armor.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know I want to talk to both you and John about a visit that you guys took to an arms and armor study in Louisville, Kentucky. But before we do that, just to kind of get some of the context here, people really need to see your site, Parker. So at this time, we're really trying this out. We've not done this before. So hopefully Google and everything will work good here. But you can see we have shared in the lower left, we have actually Parker's website. So I was going through there. I'm just going to talk about it a bit, and then that may give our producer a minute to pull that page up to the center. We'll see if she'll be able to do that, our wonderful producer, Carolina. So let's see if she can do that. But while she's doing that, I just wanted to give you my impression of the website, just going there. It is really, really beautiful work, Parker. I was particularly amazed to see the variety of things that you're making. You know, not just arms and armor, but I was particularly drawn to the chalices that you were making. I'm working on a film about the Holy Grail, actually the beginning of the myths of the Holy Grail and how they were supposedly brought to Britain by Joseph of Arimathea. So I think I might have to have a conversation with you, you know, after the show sometime, to talk about, you know, just I don't know. Maybe you can tell us about these cups. But while she's working on getting that page up, because I don't see that we've gone full screen yet, maybe you could show us, tell us a little bit about that helmet that behind you.
Yeah, certainly. This is actually my personal barbute.
And feel free to pick it up and bring it right in front of the camera if you want.
Yeah, this is actually based on a helmet that's in the Arms and Armor collection at the Philadelphia Museum of Art.
Okay.
You may notice though that it's got a fencing mesh that's attached to the front that would not have been historical, but if
Yeah.
you look, that's a dent. There are dents, dings, scratches all over this helmet because this is my personal sparring helmet. This is what I use in practice. So I have a lot of inducement to make sure that I'm producing a quality object because if you produce a good helmet, it'll help you from losing your helmet.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a beautiful piece of work. And we're looking at the video now of you. It looks like you're making a shield.
Yeah, a video that I produced while I was still in grad school, demonstrating how I make it's one of the popular fencing buckler. It's a small round shield. A lot of the membership over the years have acquired these, and what I'm showing is how I, through the process of raising, produce shield dress, which is how they would have produced it historically. Now, as you can see from the film, I'm using an oxyacetylene torch, which is a safer and cleaner way of heating the metal. Historically, they would have used a coal forge, but the process is the same. And interestingly, mentioning my chalices, this is the same process that I go through, only instead of working with steel and iron, I'm actually working with silver, and even sometimes if the person's going to do it gold. So the process is the same, where you're taking the metal and you're forming it over a stake. And if you do it correctly, you have extreme control over the thickness of the material, with steel or iron. And this is really important, and this relates back to what John and I were finding out looking at historical examples. A lot of modern recreation armor is made out of a uniform thickness of steel, and historically that's not the case. Historically, you would have varying thicknesses within the same plate. So if you need more protection at the front of the breastplate, you're going to have thicker steel there, and then towards the edge, it's not going to be as thick. And when you produce armor using historical techniques, you realize that the material is so extremely plastic, and you're able to produce almost biological treatment on how armor is supposed to work, because it has to work in conjunction with a biological form, the human body.
Excellent, excellent. John, what do you think when you saw Parker's work? And here we are on the main webpage. Maybe we could look at some of the armor and weapons here, because these are just some good still shots. But yeah, I mean, look at these gloves. I mean, these torso pieces you've made. It's just absolutely stunning. You know, I mean, I can't imagine how much, like this glove, for instance. I mean, I can't imagine how much time went in to make that. But John, you know, being somebody who's actually, maybe you can tell us about your visit to this event. But you know, and you've probably tried on a number of these types of armor items from different centuries. and done some sparring and stuff. Yeah, what can you tell us about Parker's work as a martial artist and your inspiration?
Well, I've known Parker for quite a while, and again, we're colleagues that work and train together under the auspices of the ARMA. So we focus on recreating the accurate and legitimate historical martial traditions of Western Europe between roughly the fall of the Roman Empire through approximately 1650. And of course, the quote-unquote golden age of armor falls right within that time parameter. And Parker, I know, personally, I've trained with him. I'm actually proud to say I'm responsible for helping with the barbutes that he showed off. Some of those dents that he mentioned, I might be responsible for. But as to what to think about the armors, I mean, that's a huge part of it right there. Was that me? Awesome. Because he is creating beautiful pieces of art, but they're functional pieces. They serve the purpose. Had I hit Parker in the head with the force that I did to create the dent in the helmet that he just showed, obviously Parker would probably not be joining us today. So he's creating a beautiful piece of metal, a beautiful piece of art, but a piece that is practical, functional, just like the arms and armor we would have seen during the time periods that we are studying.
Yeah. There was one particular piece I wanted to look at on the website that I believe is under your custom section where the cups are, but it looked like a fantasy piece that you had made. But it looked to be a good example of what you're actually capable of producing. What's the most difficult? I think it's under. Where is it? It looked like a space helmet of some sort of steampunk, maybe.
Yeah, it was deliberately produced for a.
There's the cups, by the way. Let's click on those cups real quick. I just really want to show off these chalices. Are just amazing. Do you use are these from historical drawings or actual other items? And you can answer that to the question of the armor too.
A lot of the chalices are my own design. So,
okay.
So this is my knowledge of the material. The one you're looking at right there, that's actually a steel chalice. And it shows you just the level of finish you can actually get on steel. I think a lot of people, when they think of steel, they think it has to be really rough. And no, you can produce a very finish on it. But I do a lot of custom work that both armor and just traditional metal smithing, and I do jewelry as well. But some pieces are my own design. Some pieces are based off of a historical example. I do have some pieces on there that it's historical armor that has been kind of tweaked and modified to give it a modern spin. Those are more artistic items, but they're grounded on functionality. You can, for the most part, you can put those on and you can use them. But the helmet that you were referring to, the steampunk style helmet, that was actually done for a gallery that was in Seattle, and it was for a steampunk show. A year before, I had been approached because the gauntlet that you were showing earlier actually sold to a collector in Houston, and this young woman, she was doing a Kickstarter project to get a steampunk show up and going in Seattle. She saw my gauntlet. She looked at it and she saw steampunk. She didn't see the 14th century hourglass gauntlet. She saw modern steampunk. And she was like, hey, would you be willing to do a specific steampunk piece? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I actually had a bassinet that was made for a client. The client had changed their mind on the design, so I had this bassinet just sitting in my studio in bamboo, a few plumbing fixtures later that I picked up at Lowe's. Now it's a steampunk helmet. So sometimes you don't know what's going to end up happening with your work. And it's interesting that we're doing this stuff because I want this odd duality between the functional historical armor and walking in the world of the art world, which I got to say is the two very different worlds. But they have so much in common because things that I'll do, like for the Dallases, I'm using the same techniques in the production of a piece of silversmithing as I am for the production of a historical helmet. And it's so interesting because I come at projects purely from technique, and then I go with it from there.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about and I just sent a link to Carolina for the sculpture of the steampunk helm, so we can take a look at that. And right now nothing's showing up on the screen at the moment, so I don't know if we're running video there, but it's gone black there. So maybe we can just cut back to the to myself or whoever's talking for a bit while we bring up the other photo there. But yeah, could you maybe walk us through? Yeah, there's the steampunk piece again. Just amazing. Is that all steel? The whole helm? Looks like you use brass and steel. There's sort of a combination of metals there.
Yeah, the underside was originally what's called a flat visor bassinet, which was an early type of bassinet. It was a
that's gorgeous.
That had a central hinge mount that turned into a flat visor that would flip up. And so the under portion is actually blue steel, which would have been a historical finish. I think a lot more armor was originally blue, and then during the Victorian period, you had a lot of restoration that removed these priceless finishes that were on the original armor because they had the idea that an armor had to be the knight in shining armor. The other fixtures that you see are copper and brass. A lot of it is stuff that I fabricated myself, but some of it is actually copper fittings that I picked up at Lowe's. The basis of it is a bassinet, and you kind of get the idea of that, but you get the feeling like medieval, but not quite. So. But yeah, originally it was a function helmet. The process that I go through, especially in the creation of a historical helmet, as you notice the drawing that I have behind me, it starts with careful measurements of the client. This is actually a client's leg, and this is based off the measurements that I took in. And as you can see, I start off in the two-dimensional, designing the helmet around the wearer's body, because ultimately that's how it has to interact. And interestingly enough, this is for a bassinet. So, I'm sorry, no, not a bassinet, a barbute, which is the style of helmet that you see right here. And right now, this is in the early stage of production. But I kind of wanted to put this up and show this is how it has to start.
Okay. Having a little bit of trouble with your audio. John, are you catching everything coming from Parker?
It's patchy.
Okay, yeah. We'll just we're hearing you mostly, but if for some reason I don't think it's a problem with the microphone. I think it might be just the internet connection, perhaps. It's just a little bit wobbly. It's there, but it's kind of phases in and out. So please forgive us if we ask a question you already answered.
Right. If you need me to repeat anything, I'll be happy to do so.
Come again? I'm sorry.
Oh, if you need me to repeat anything, I'll be happy to do so.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, we'll try to work on that next time because one of the things that we're going to continue doing are these shows. So we're going to keep bringing these to you, bringing new guests. And, just want to take a moment to let everybody know that they can go to reclaimingtheblade.com. We are going to be building a website called swordtalks.com, but it's not up and running yet. So don't bother going there at the moment because it's under construction. But that'll be a really great site. Some of the plans we have for the Sword Talks website are going to be two really cool things. Are one, we want to create a shop where anybody can put anything they want in the shop and sell their wares, and just show off whatever work they're doing, advertise their work, and just, you know, there's really no cost involved in that. So, and then the other really cool thing I'm excited about is we're going to do a brand new Fight Club Finder. We had a Fight Club Finder on the original website for ReclaimingTheBlade.com. It was very popular, but we're just going to update it and just once again have a place where people can post their club or find a club. So that will be available. We'll probably have that on ReclaimingTheBlade.com as well. So, but yeah, we will any issues we have with audio or technical stuff, we'll be trying to sort those things out. And we'll probably have Parker back on again. I always want to say Peter Parker, but I'm sure you've you know, Spider-Man reference there. But no, it's Parker Brown, and CrescentMoonArmory.net is his website. That's Crescent Moon Armory, just as it would be spelled, ARNOURY .net, and you can take a look at his work there. Sure. So we are we are going to yeah, keep doing these shows, bringing them to you, and we'll probably have Parker back on again. So you know, if you have any questions, you even want to email us or get in touch with the guest, just let us know, and we'll be happy to do that for you, because it is a really, you know, it's kind of a small group of the people that are practicing the crafts of making arms and armor, and maybe we could, you know, just ask another follow-up question to Parker about, you know, how is it that you came about being, as I was saying, there's not a lot of people in the world that can say they are a full-time, you know, I guess blacksmith that makes, you know, armor and stuff, which is pretty cool. How is that more on kind of working on commission pieces, or when did that kind of take off for you, and what's that like?
Well, okay. I guess my first real start in the creation of armor was working with another talented armorer named Patrick Faden. I was very fortunate that he came in to the undergraduate classes where I was at the University of Texas. He was taking a few classes, and I found out that he produced armor. I had been experimenting with it at that point, and he just came up to me one day and said, "Hey, what are you doing this next summer?" And I was like, "You know, working. Why? What's that?" And so he offered an apprenticeship for one summer, and let me tell you, I worked hard. I worked for free, but I learned. And what I got out of that was the absolute necessity of technical mastery before trying to launch into you know, high concept work. Because he was a strong proponent that the armor had to work, that the armor was a tool first and foremost. And he continues to communicate with it. I'm very fortunate that I still talk to him on a regular basis. But then following up after that, that was about 2003. 2004, while I was taking classes in medieval, I attended a symposium at the University of Dallas, where a member of the Association for Renaissance Martial Arts was speaking. His name was Ernie Perez. He was the study group leader in Dallas. And just the things that he had to say during that lecture, it's like everything was clicking in my mind. I was just sitting there listening to everything he had to say about the use of the sword and the use of armor, and I'm just going, yes, yes, okay, oh my gosh, I need to get involved in the organization. And that was the beginning. You know, starting off as a novice fighter, and starting off as a novice armorer, two skills developed simultaneously, and each informed the other. And it's been fun, it's been interesting, and it's been challenging because, let's face it, it's not the first thing that people think of. It's not the first field that you think of that you're going to go into. You're like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to practice something that's been technically obsolete for the last 500 years. But what I've done is I've built up a dedicated client base of individuals that are informed and educated about what they need in the armor to do for them in the realm of martial arts. And my clients inform my work, and I, through my work, inform my clients. So it's a symbiotic relationship. Most of my work is custom-based, so it's all it's commission-based. And as you can see, I pay a lot of attention to the specific custom design of each piece because it's going to be made to fit an individual person. And I think that right now a lot of people are not aware of the necessity that if they're going to be using using armor in training in the martial arts, of how important it is that the armor fit in their body. If the armor is not fitting and functioning to your body, that's going to change how you go about fighting. And you're going to develop incorrect fighting techniques and you're going to work around the armor. And the armor should work with you, work in conjunction with your training. It's a fight system. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I studied under an apprenticeship, and I've been my martial arts is my metal arts.
Yeah, that's really good, and that leads into something I wanted to ask John. John, you have practiced with these arms and armor quite a bit, and I would say you're very, very well educated and have the personal experience and training. The whole question of weight versus protection. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the trade-off there and why certain cavalry or foot soldiers. What was sort of the decision-making process during certain periods, and what in your mind is the ultimate balance when it comes to a lighter armor, maybe more of a leather and metal combination, as opposed something that's more flexible and light, as opposed to some full plate armor? Maybe you can just talk about that a little bit, because I think that's something a lot of people wonder about.
Okay. Recently, Parker and myself were invited to a wonderful and exclusive opportunity in Louisville, Kentucky, where we had the opportunity to examine many pieces of armor, individual pieces, excuse me, breastplates, gauntlets, gorgets, helmets, and some arms as well, or weapons. And one of the things that you don't get a sense for when you go to the museum and you look at a particular artifact behind a piece of glass is weight, thickness, things like that. Sometimes the displays, it's hard to see how thick that metal is. And in having the opportunity to handle these pieces extensively, take all the time you need with them, photograph them, and in many cases put them on, you begin to realize, as Parker alluded to earlier, the metal's not one specific thickness. It might be thicker in one spot and then taper to a thinner metal. And armor was evolutionary. It evolved over a period of time. It affected how the sword was used. The sword techniques changed. You can't cut through plate armor with a sharp weapon, so the techniques changed into what the Germans called Halbschwert, or half sorting, using the point to find those unprotected points in the armor and attack those specific areas. I was going somewhere with um, the wow, brain just went woo.
Well, I think one of the things that we really developed a better understanding for was there is a notion, and you see this in particular video gaming and popular depictions of armor that for it to be defensive and effective, you have to start out with really thick plates of metal, and that's not the case. In fact, the strength of the armor is in the geometry of the plate, and what I'm talking about is uh, these are concepts that people in the medieval and Renaissance world knew very well. If you need any evidence of their vast understanding of geometry, look no further than Romanesque and Gothic architecture. There's a reason why we'll look at a piece of armor, like for example that peak right there, that's a miniature Gothic arch. Here I actually have a really good example of the Gothic arch.
Is that a breastplate there?
That is a latter 15th century breastplate, and what you're looking at is the development of Euclidean geometry, especially in the world of the Renaissance. They were reviving their understanding of the Greek Roman understandings of art and architecture. So they were putting that into their weapons and armor development. And so when you're looking at a historical piece of armor, the geometry and the control of the material under the hammer is what's going to determine the inherent strength and the ability of that armor to withstand the force of a hit, not the thickness of the material. Because once you put a certain amount of weight onto a human body, you're not going to be able to function very well. In fact, a good standard rule of how much armor weighs is it's supposed to be no more than 1/3 of the wearer's body weight. So if you're a 180-pound individual, your full suit of armor is going to only weigh about 60 pounds. Now that may sound monstrous, but you ask a modern infantryman how much their pack and equipment weighs, and they're putting on, 100, 120 pounds of gear. So now the knight in shining armor, that walking tank, as people have referred to it, is now all of a sudden that doesn't make any sense. These are individuals, they're highly trained individuals that have been trained since they're 7 years old in how to fight, and they're wearing an armor that is extremely effective and relatively lightweight. Now all of a sudden, you don't want to be the person on the receiving end of this person's training and technology.
Yeah. Now, did armor essentially die off as something that we didn't see on the battlefield because of the musket and the gun, pretty much?
This is another common misconception that I, right now, myself, John Clements, has addressed this in our recent biannual conference, that the idea that the firearms literally blew away armor on the battlefield doesn't make sense when you look at historical examples. The first use of firearms in Europe are occurring around 1300, but armor was still being produced of ever-increasing quality all the way into the 1650s. And by that time, firearms were quite a common occurrence on the battlefield. What was changing was the economic and social changes in Europe at the time that made it more and more difficult for the necessary infrastructure for you to produce armor on the wide scale that European armies were developing. European armies during the medieval and Renaissance era, we are thinking of a professional class of military that really wasn't quite in existence in the way that we're used to thinking of it today. And you don't see that professional armies that were being put in the field around the 1700s. But this requires it's the idea is you're putting a lot of people on the field, and by doing that, you can lower your individual level of expertise in your soldier, and you're also able to get away with kind of, I don't want to say producing lower grade, lower quality equipment for average soldier, but that is kind of the methodology. And it worked great throughout the 1700s and throughout the 1800s. But then at the turn of the century, of the 20th century, during World War I, you see that being challenged in the trench warfare of the time. And lo and behold, you have to start developing plate armor again. In fact, in the United States, the person that we turned to, Bashford Dean, he was the curator of the Arms and Armor collection at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. They turned to him for their initial designs for the U.S. military for the development of body armor and head protection. So in fact, a lot of the armor that and it is armor, a lot of the stuff that you see in use in World War I and World War II is a direct connected ancestor to what was being worn on the medieval and Renaissance battlefield. So to me, the idea that firearms got rid of armor and that it was a dead art doesn't make sense when you realize that no, it was an active lineage, active progression in design from the sallet that's being worn by a 15th century soldier and the modern Kevlar, plate Kevlar and helmet system that they're using now in our modern military.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of the steel plate would a lot of the lead bullets would bounce right off the steel plate anyways.
Yeah, there was actually, the term bulletproof comes from the activity within late 15th and 16th century armories where you would set up a breastplate and you would actively fire at it with a dragoon pistol, which was a cavalry weapon. And the idea is that the dent produced in that armor was called the bullet proof. It was a proof mark. And there were very strict laws about armorers falsifying this dent mark in their armor, because if you're purchasing the armor, you're looking for that bullet proof, saying that if you wear this in the battlefield and somebody takes a shot at you, it's going to perform to these standards. And if you're falsifying that mark, you're falsifying something that would have a direct impact on somebody's life. But today, when we talk about something being bulletproof, you're actually talking about something that was practiced by the Renaissance armorer.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. And that those tests were done, is equally as fascinating that they, were testing them out against the weapons of the day. But yes, and of course they didn't have the type of rifles we have today that are, I guess, armor-piercing bullets and such. That technology wasn't advanced enough to even exist, or mortars, or long-range, I guess, type. And then of course airplanes. Lots of things changed the battlefield, as it were. But it's interesting to see that the armor is still used today. So going back to you, John, for a minute. You've actually worn some of this armor. Maybe you can pick up. I know you had some other thoughts. So I'll just leave it open to what you want to discuss. But anything on the the wearing of these armors? Is it daunting to kind of do some of the martial moves when you got the armor on? Oh, your mic is mute, John. Sorry. Go ahead. You're going to want to unmute your mic, John. John, we can't hear you. Hello, can you hear me okay? All right, thanks. I think he'll be back in a minute, I'm sure. Well, we'll let him sort that out real quick. He might have pushed the wrong button. Going back to you, Parker. Oh, John, you there?
Okay, I got it. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. It's good to hit that mute, but as Carolina points out, you just want to make sure. I did the same thing 2 seconds ago. You just forget the mute's on. So, anyways, I think you heard my question, though.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And
take it away.
I'd like to apologize for the cerebral disconnect earlier. I know that
No worries.
casting live, and I appreciate Parker stepping in there and picking up the slack. So thank you for that. You would think it would be daunting to put on this metal exoskeleton and then have to move around and defend yourself and fight. But the development of armor was so sophisticated that you literally do have an exoskeleton. It becomes a second skin, and the articulation that's allowable in properly made armor. I mean, I had on recently a 16th century High Gothic German gauntlet that there was nothing I can do without the gauntlet that I couldn't do with the gauntlet. I mean, it was just so incredibly precision made that here's a piece of metal that's 450 years old approximately, and yet I'm able to put it on my hand and move with no impediment whatsoever. Also had the opportunity to put on a piece of leg armor. And we have images in our martial treatises which show stances that are very low, deep stances in armor. I was able to put this piece of armor on and immediately, being a martial artist, dropped right into that stance and just kind of nodded, saying, yeah, that's exactly right. It's designed. I was able to take a historical armor, in other words, and replicate exactly what I'm seeing being drawn in martial arts treatises from the mid-15th century. So that's taking two pieces of the puzzle and putting them together and being able to experience that as a pretty profound move forward in my personal understanding and development as a practicing martial artist of these archaic arts.
Absolutely. And I think with the armor itself, there was a lot of trial and error. I mean, they kind of developed this over a long period of time, and but there are certain practical things that they adapted quickly, I believe, and then they fine-tuned that over the centuries. Would you say that is true, Parker?
Yeah, you really have the beginning of what we think of as the full plate European armor. It starts actually around the 11th and 12th centuries, and everything was being based off of the use of mail garments, the full hauberk that goes down past the knees, and then you have mail covering on the legs and the arms. You have mail mittens. And then slowly over time, you started adding plate defenses that augment the mail. So you have additions to the knees, and then to the elbows, and then you have the use of the coat of plates that would protect the body. But all of this was based on small pieces of iron and steel, because modern metalsmithing allows us to process huge quantities of steel into large sheets, thanks to the developments during the Industrial Revolution. But historically, you could only produce sheets in small quantities, so that would limit the size that you were able to start out with. But around the 1400s, consequently, about the same time as what was going on during the 100 Years' War between France and England, you have larger plate being produced and then turned into larger pieces on the body, such as fuller coverage on the head, coverage of the breastplate, the arms, the shoulders, And then by the end of the period of the Hundred Years' War, around 1420, you have what is identifiable as most people think of as the knight in shining armor, the full plate coverage. And that continued to be progressed upon and developed during the 1500s. You see it developing in reaction firearms technology. So there was a constant dialogue between technology, the needs of defense, and the and the techniques of defense. And each of these are going back and forth. So when you look at it, when you zoom out, what you're talking about is a development of an industry that spanned over 500 years. And when you put that in perspective, that our own country, the United States, has been only in existence for a little over 200 years, now you start to see, wow, there's a lot of mental development that went into this. And when you look at this industry and say, oh, well, this was crude, oh, this was, unrefined, nah, not really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So as we are, running towards the end of our show, John, could you? I mean, anything else you want to mention? But also, can you tell us about Arms and Armor Study Day?
The Arms and Armor Study Day was a very unique opportunity where I received a personal invitation to attend an Arms and Armor study with a private collector in Louisville, Kentucky. He actually hails from elsewhere in the country, but had brought several pieces in for a small group of Arms and Armor researchers. And I was, fortunately, it was a very small, limited engagement. I would have loved to have taken the entire membership of the Association for Renaissance Martial Arts with me. It was an invaluable experience, but that was not possible. Fortunately, I was able to get Parker an invitation, and he was able to come along with me, which as an armorer and having him as a professional armorer there with me really opened up a lot of new additional perspectives. But the Arms and Armor Study Day essentially was, as I say, a private collector bringing out multiple pieces of armor and allowing us pretty much rock star access to spend as much time with each individual piece to actually put them on, move around, handle them as far as taking photographs from inside out, all the different angles, getting an appreciation for the thickness of metal, how the thickness of metal might alter or change from one part of the armor to the next. And we did that, what was it, about 2 weeks ago, Parker, I believe, on a Sunday.
Is that going to be an annual event?
They are discussing doing it again in the future, but at this time I do not know when or how.
Okay, it was more of a private invitation only type thing. Okay.
Of course, since the event was in Louisville, Parker and I decided to take advantage of the opportunity, and the next day we visited the Fraser International Arms Museum, which is also located in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's right.
Had scheduled an appointment with their Arms and Armor curator, and we went in.
You guys, next time have to give us a heads up, and we'll bring a camera crew out there with you. I wish we could have been able to do that.
But as I say, I scheduled an appointment with their Arms and Armor curator, so Parker and I also got to go in and study several interesting pieces of arms and armor in their collections as well.
Right.
In a nutshell, I think I hopefully answered your question.
No, that's great. That's really fantastic. Couple of other things I just want to plug here one more time. Just want to remind everybody once again that we are pretty much set. I think Carolina was telling me, our producer, that we've got 5 weeks of guests already set up. So every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be here. We're going to be talking about swords. We're going to be talking about arms and armor, all these fun things every Saturday, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I hope you'll join us for all of these. They've just been a ton of fun. I'm learning a lot. It just, it's great to meet the people that are actually doing it, and also meet these weapons and meet these objects and learn more about them is just fantastic. Want to thank our guest again, and want to remind folks that they can go over to his website. It's very easy to get to. You just want to go to crescentmoonarmory.net, and you can go, and as you have seen, we featured the website here in the broadcast here. You can go and check out his website. If you have any questions for us, you can email us at contact@galatiafilms.com, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. And also just want to remind folks about our Reclaiming the Blade, our second Reclaiming the Blade film that we are set to produce. We're already talking about where we're going with cameras and who we're going to talk to, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Appreciate everybody who supported the first film. You can pick up the first film by going to Reclaiming the Blade, and you can support the second film at the same time. So you can't beat that. You get the film, you get to help us make another one, and who knows? Maybe we'll be able to take our cameras to Louisville, Kentucky, and see some of this stuff up close, and combine that with some just fun stuff like music and looking at some of the Hollywood stuff, which plays a big role in the mind. On our thoughts of swords and the culture and craft of it, and how it pervades everything. So really appreciate that. Again, reclaimingtheblade.com. And I see we lost Parker there for a minute, but we did plug your site again while you were out there for a minute. And
sorry about that. My internet connection actually kind of fritzed out for a second.
No problem, no problem. And we will have a couple technical glitches every now and again, but as we get up and running. Again, look for the new site soon, swordtalks.com. Not up yet, but we want to have a lot of community-type things available there. John, what's anything you wanted to plug for yourself?
Well, you bring up the Sword Talks website, and it might be worth mentioning that people can also follow Sword Talks on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Along with, please feel free to follow our organization, the Association for Renaissance Martial Arts, at Arma Deputy Twitter. And for more information on the Arma itself, please check out our website at www.thearma.org.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. And I think there's a Sword Talks Facebook page too. So thanks for plugging the social media. Yeah, because we are getting the word out and announcing guests and things like that. Kind of working with that social media while there's no website in place yet. It's good. That way we can still communicate to everybody. But I'm here to tell you, every Saturday, 5 o'clock, we're going to be here. Somebody will be hosting. We may miss a week, if there's a holiday or something. But we do have quite a few guests lined up. It's been amazing to have people like Peter and John join us. I'm sorry, Parker and John. Peter's an upcoming guest. So again, I just really appreciate Parker you spending the time with us. I hope you'll come back as a guest again and join us again to talk more.
It would be an absolute pleasure, and for anybody who's interested, pay attention on my website. I actually have more videos that I'll be posting on YouTube showing the actual production of pieces.
That would be amazing. We would love to see that, and absolutely, we'd love to have you back on because I feel like a lot of times in these shows we've just scratched the surface, So it'll be a lot. It'll be much fun to continue exploring deeper and deeper into learning more and more about because there's so many questions. I mean, I could talk about this for a long while, but we'll save it for the next episode. And just want to thank everybody for being here. And with that, we will sign off. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.